The Women's Political Council was an organization that had begun in 1946 after just dozens of black people had been arrested on the buses for segregation purposes. And at that time, the black woman and the white man were the freest people in the southern states. And we knew that if something hadn't been done by the women, there wouldn't be anything done. And we had sat down and witnessed the arrest and humiliation and the court trials and fines paid of people who just sat down in an empty seat. And so we knew something had to be done. We organized the Women's Council. Within a month's time, we had over 100 members. We organized a second chapter and a third, so we had more than 300 members in that organization. We had members in every elementary, junior high, and senior high school. We had them organized from federal and state and local jobs. Wherever there were more than 10 blacks employed, we had a member there, and we were organized to the point that we knew that in a matter of hours we could corral the whole city.
When you look back in history, it looks like the boycott was a spontaneous act provoked by the arrest of Rosa Parks. Was it?
It was a spontaneous act from those persons who were not members of the Women's Political Council. But we had worked for at least 3 years getting that thing organized. The night of the evening that Rosa Parks was arrested, Fred Gray called me and told me she was arrested. Somebody had gone her bail, but her case would be on Monday. And I, as president of the main body of the Women's Political Council, got on the phone and I called all the officers of the 3 chapters. I called as many of the men who had supported us as possible, and I told them that Rosa Parks had been arrested and she would be tried. They said, "You have the plans, put them into operation." I called every person who was in every school and every place where we had planned to be at that, have somebody at that school or wherever it was at a certain time, that I would be there with materials for them to disseminate. I didn't go to bed that night. I cut those stencils. I ran off 35,000 copies. I took them to school with me in my car. After I had talked with every member in the elementary, junior high, and senior high schools to have somebody on the campus, that I would be there at a certain time during the day and deliver them. I taught my classes from 8 to 10. I was free from 10 to 2. And when my 10 o'clock class was over, I took 2 senior students with me, and I had them in my car bundled and ready to be given out. And I would drive to the place of dissemination. A kid would be there to grab them, disappear. And I was on the campus and off or in the front of the place or wherever it was before anybody knew that I was there. I delivered them in my car.
The ministers were meeting at the same time?
The ministers, not at 10 o'clock. The ministers were meeting that afternoon or sometime during the day on High Street. They were having the International Ministerial Association meeting. And after we had circulated those 35,000 circulars, then we went by the church. That was about 3:30 in the afternoon, and we took them to the ministers. And it was there that they learned there was to be a boycott. And they agreed to meet at Dr. King's church, Dexter Avenue, that night to decide what should be done about the boycott after the first day. You see, the Women's Council planned it only for Monday, and it was left up to the men to take over after we had forced them really to decide whether or not it had been successful enough to continue and how long it was to be continued.
How did most people find out about it? The leaflets were distributed. Did the newspaper article?
We had just everything in our favor because we distributed the 35,000 copies, and most of the people got the message. But there were outlying areas that didn't get it. And one lone black woman who was so faithful to her white lady, as she called it, went back to work and took one of the circulars to this woman so she would know what the blacks had planned. When the woman got it, she immediately called the media. And then following that, the television, the radios, and evening newspapers, everybody told those persons whom we had not reached that would be the boycott. So the die was cast.
Sunday night, what was the weather like?
We thought nature was going to fail us because the latter part of Sunday afternoon it started clouding. And Sunday night nobody was slept. Monday morning was very dreary, dark, cloudy, and the threat of rain. And it remained that way practically all day. But thanks be to goodness, very few people rode the bus Monday morning. And all of us were around to see how many got on them.
Monday, the decision is made to continue the boycott.
Monday night, the ministers held their meeting at Whole Street Baptist Church, and they voted unanimously to continue the boycott. And instead of it lasting one day, as the Women's Council had planned it, it lasted for 13 months.
What kept it going?
The spirit, the desire, the injustices that had been endured by thousands of people through the years. I think the people were fed up. They had reached the point that they knew there was no return, that they had to do it or die. And that's what kept it going. It was the sheer spirit for freedom, for the feeling of being a man and a woman.